I often get the question if learning to use certain apps or learning to use apps in general is too much for an individual with a brain injury. And I'm always puzzled by that because I've actually been teaching at the Acquired Brain Injury Program at Coastline for over 30 years. So I've been working with individuals with mild, moderate, as well as severe injuries for a very long time. And I think if you take the right approach, if you deal with the cognitive aspects of the injury and how those cognitive aspects, the organization, the time management, the decision making, etc. If you really indicate to individuals how the apps are helping with those things, and you use the device itself or the app itself as sort of a cognitive prosthetic, I think what you do is you really have a significant impact on the individual. It helps them not only learn to use the app and not only learn how to perhaps be more successful in their everyday life, but it sort of becomes a little mini cognitive rehabilitation thing in and of itself. So what ends up happening when an individual is learning to use the apps is something that we call making cognitive connections. The idea of making cognitive connections is to really teach an individual how to use the device itself to begin with, and then to slowly integrate the concept of those cognitive skills. So for example, if someone's entering a calendaring appointment or an event into their device, that really is a whole lot of cognitive skills that we wouldn't think of, in the general public. So what do you do when you enter an appointment? Well, you have to pay attention to detail. You have to make a decision. You have to think about what's relevant and what's not relevant. So a silly example of that is if an individual puts in doctor's appointment as the event title, what happens is for a person with a brain injury, they have so many different doctors. If you don't put specific information, then oftentimes 2 months later when the appointment pops up, you have no idea which doctor it was that you had put in there. But that's a very common kind of an issue for an individual with a brain injury where they just don't think necessarily of all the relevant information. And so by having them do this and by working with them, I can help point out some of those inconsistencies, perhaps in their cognitive abilities, but I can do it in a very practical way. It's something that they can see themselves quite easily, and I think that that's a really important component to it.
This video was produced by Brainline, thanks to generous support from the Infinite Hero Foundation.